Let's get started with the fifth part of our Van Gogh Starry Night. We're going to work in this bottom space right here. We are first going to take a very small area here and turn it into some more hills. And we're going to use a light blue for that. So I want you to take your dark blue with a little bit of white, just like we did up in the top. Mix those into a nice light blue color. When you have that, we are going to take an area about halfway down, straight over, and we're going to kind of connect it up here. So the shape itself is not necessarily too important, but you want it to be about halfway down, past what I'm going to call the little waterfall area, and up. And that area is going to be full of lines that follow this curved line. So I'm going to start either at the bottom and pull it up and curve it, or I can start at the top and curve it down. And making sure that my blue color is not mixed all the way. I want it to be pretty white. And I want to be able to see the lines of blue and white in it. So I'm just going to go across here and add some of these lines that curve and follow up. I'm sure you guys are thinking, this is not what Van Gogh's Starry Night looks like. But if you look closely, it looks like there's a bunch of little waterfalls in it. As soon as we add the city, it'll take up a lot of the space down here. And it'll begin to come together a little more. While I have this brush out, I'm going to grab a little bit of black paint, and I'm going to just go right along this edge here to kind of make sure there's a nice separation. And that line doesn't have to be straight. I'm following my brush strokes. I'm going to try to pull that down this way a little bit. Very, very, very light hand when you do that. Now this is going to be a little area down here. We're going to add our city. The only real important part of the city that people iconically know as Van Gogh is the church. And the church steeple goes all the way up past the mountains. So we want to make sure that our church steeple is going to go up really high, but we're not going to add the church steeple till the end because we want to be able to get that sky in there. So we are going to start with the church down at the bottom, knowing that we are going to skip the steeple. I'm going to keep my dirty brush. Okay, so it's got a little bit of blue and a little bit of black, and I'm going to use white paint. And the reason I'm keeping my brush dirty is this is a night picture, so even the white color of the church is going to look like a light blue. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to make what every kid in the world knows as a house shape. I'm going to do a square with a triangle on it and paint it in. Square with a triangle. Keep it simple. Once I have that square with a triangle, just to the left of it, I'm going to add a straight line that goes into my roof. And I'm going to make that straight line go down, but I'm not going to go down as far as the bottom of the first little house shape. I'm going to pull over a little bit before that. We've got one more part of the base of the church to build. I think I still have enough white on my brush, but if you need a little bit more, you can. I'm going to create just a very small extra piece right here. It's just like a rectangle that's falling off the side over there. Now I do want this to be a little bit darker than that bright white. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to wipe it off, And I'm going to keep that dirty blue on there. If you don't have enough blue, you can grab a little blue. But watch how I'm going to make the sides and the front of the church stand out. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm just going to pull to the side just to make it a little bit bluer. Grab just a little bit more. I am barely using any paint. And I'm not going to make the whole front super dark. I just want part of it. I'm also going to take that same blue and I'm going to put just a little bit on these two sides, wipe off my brush, and then slowly blend those in. I want these to be a little bit darker than the front of my church, but not much darker. Now here's a trick. I want to make a straight line. I'm going to take my paintbrush, I'm actually going to squeeze those wet bristles together. Almost like making a little weapon. Look at that, look how skinny that is. If I'm very careful, I'm going to be able to outline my church with black. If this stresses you out, wait till the end and use Sharpie. So just a little bit of black paint on the end, very little. I'm going to be able to go in and outline my church. It does not have to be a solid outline. We just want to be able to see that there's some definition. I'm going to put a little line here because this is actually a roof on this side. Looking at the side of that one. Same thing here, there's a roof line right here. Almost not touching my canvas, and it's okay if I don't see all of it. This is the hardest building. It's the only building we're going to give a lot of detail to. The rest of the buildings are pretty simple and straightforward. They're not going to have much detail. The church does have a door right here. And it has a window right here. Now the steeple itself will go right here in a little bit, but we're not going to do that yet. Now that I've shown you the hard church, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a bunch of really simple buildings. So same brush, I'm going to keep it flat, and I'm going to use some brown. And all I'm going to do is make a rectangle. Easy peasy. Now, of course, this is in Van Gogh style, so I want to add a second color to that because I don't want a flat color. So I'm going to take a little bit of black to that and just do a couple of small little lines of black on the left and pull them to the right so that they start to change into that light brown color. It's like a little nice gradient right there. Now for the roof, I'm going to take red and brown. So I did half on each of my sides. I did red on one side and brown on the other. And I'm just going to make little lines that go off to the right. Little lines off to the right. And then straight down. And if I add a front door on here with a little bit of black and a rectangle, have myself a nice little house. You can make these houses any place you want on your base level. Make a gray one too. So I'm just taking a little bit of black and white and mixing it together to make a gray. Make a gray one right here. But don't put anything right along this edge right here. We need to add some trees in that area. So what I want you to do is build, 4 or 5 little houses down there. Every time you do it, just use a rectangle. Add a little bit of black to one side to show some shadow. Make it a little bit more interesting for your people that are going to be looking at it. Of course, the roof. You need to have a door, maybe a window. Maybe this one's going to be a fancy house. It's going to have a window over here. Now, these two are on the same level in my canvas. I want to make sure that my next one is up just a little bit higher. So maybe I'm going to put it up here. And since I'm putting it up higher on the canvas, I'm going to have to make it smaller. That's what tells you that it's a little bit further away, is that it's going to be a little bit smaller and higher up on the canvas. Shows some perspective when you do it that way. Door in there. Now to finish out this base down here, and you can add as many little houses as you want. You can even have some that have their lights on. Like I told you guys before, Van Gogh's favorite color was yellow. So he had some of the lights on in his house, maybe even a light on in the church. But to finish out our background down here, same brush, I'm going to use green, and I'm going to make little curly cues. Look at this, it even looks like the letter E. So if you are a teacher, you'll appreciate that. Several little letter E's. Now those little letter E's are not going to be it. There's more than that. With those little letter E's, when you have your whole row done, you're going to grab a little bit of yellow. You're going to add it in there. A little bit of yellow all the way through. You're going to layer these on top of each other, just little curlies. Try not to hit your house like I just did. And as you come closer to the front of your canvas with these, you can make them a little bit more sparse and maybe add a little bit of brown in them. Feel free to roll over each other a little bit. They don't need to be in nice, neat, straight rows. Van Gogh was not a nice, neat, straight row kind of artist. He could. He can make some really neat, detailed art, but it wasn't what spoke to him. You want to be able to still see some of that blue in that background. We also want to fill some of that space up with some green. Don't forget, the further you go down, add more green. The higher up in your hill you have, add more yellow. I want you to play with your landscape a little bit down here. Remember, don't worry about your steeple yet. That's coming at the end. I'm going to add a little bit of this light blue color down here. I want a waterfall area to break up some of the green. Yep, I like where that's going. Last thing I'm going to add in this part of the video before I move on to the last step, which is our sky, which is really going to bring it all together. So I'm going to add some white up here at the top. I want that moon shining on the tops of these trees in the background. Just following my lines around. I want that moon shining on some of those background areas. I like that. All right. When you guys get to the next video, we're going to finish out that sky and add our final detail.